Welcome to the channel. For those who don't know, my name is Troy L. Jackson III, and if you are here, then you have obviously decided to live free. And if you stay, you are now a part of the Freedom family. And in our house, financial freedom is for everyone. And if you're on your way back, welcome back, Freedom family. How you guys doing? For those of you who are new, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification, especially if you like these type of videos. This tells the algorithm that I should continue making videos like this. It will show this video to other viewers that are similar to you, and in turn cause me to make more videos like this so I can continue to increase our Freedom family. So you obviously came here to learn my exact steps on how I got out of debt. Just so you know, this won't be my full freedom story. I already made a video previously on this, so go check that one out if you want to know the exact story. This video will have some tidbits, but it won't be the exact story. The exact steps that I use to get out of debt, it all starts with a dream, your why, a plan, the budget, the emergency fund threshold, decreasing expenses, increasing income, picking a method, and a bonus for those who stay till the end. If you're part of the Freedom family, you will definitely stay to the end to check out this bonus. It's just for you. And if you're not a part of the Freedom family, stay to the end to see what this bonus is all about. Step 1, the dream. I call this step the light at the end of the tunnel. No, this is not your why, but this step will keep you on your path and keep you focused in going towards your goal, just like the light at the end of the tunnel that you one day will get to. On my debt freedom journey, I dreamed of a day where I would get to a point where all my money was going to exactly where I wanted versus going to have to pay off car debt, student loan debt, or a mortgage. I wanted to tell my money what to do versus having to be forced to pay it to my past decisions. Having a dream keeps you extremely focused on your path to freedom. The next step, the why. So if the dream is your compass, always keeping you pointed in the right direction, the why is your fuel to keep you motivated. This will keep you on fire to pay off debt. This will get you through even the darkest of days on this debt freedom journey. I remember back when I was working nights and weekends, putting every single extra dollar towards debt. My why was knowing that every single extra dollar that I put towards debt was another dollar that my family would never have to struggle with paying back in the future. And that kept me on fire to continue towards my goal of being debt free. As you heard me say before, the why is where you change the narrative, change your family tree. So make sure you have a strong and powerful why. What comes after your dream and the why? The plan, of course. I had planned to get out of debt in 1.5 years, which would put me about 6 months away from getting married. Well, when you have a plan to get out of debt, it needs to be a realistic plan. Why? Because what happened on my journey? Emergencies, hiccups, bumps in the road, all types of things came up on this journey, which pushed my journey out another 6 months to 2 years. This is why it's important to not only have a plan, but make sure it's a realistic plan so you can adjust for any circumstances that may arise. We all know what's next. It's our favorite word to hate, the budget step. I like to call this step the stop the leaks phase. Why? Because in order to fix a leaky faucet, you have to find out exactly where the leaks are coming from. And a budget does just that for your finances. When you sit down and do a budget, you write out all your expenses in all of them, and you will start to realize that your spending is probably out of control. That is what I did when I was on my debt freedom journey. When I wrote out my expenses, I realized that in so many areas, my spending was out of control, and I just had no idea without having to set a budget. The budget sets your limits and helps you get more control of your money, because with a budget, you are telling your money exactly what to do versus wondering where it's going. And I like to follow that step with the emergency step. This is called the panic button step. Why? Because you absolutely have to have an emergency fund. And no, credit cards are not an emergency fund. And no, a $1,000 most likely would not be enough. On my journey, in the first month of paying off debt, I had my basement flood in the condo that I was living in. And you know how much that cost? $1,000. Well, guess what? Most emergencies, yeah, there could be some less than $1,000, but most are gonna be in that $1,000 range, which means after one emergency, you're gonna be stuck having to rebuild an emergency fund and not progressing on your paying off debt. Many things came my way on my journey that were not necessarily emergencies, but it cost me money and it stopped me on my debt freedom path if I didn't have savings. And these were unexpected wedding expenses, a car accident where I had to buy a new used car, and a plethora of other things. Luckily for me, I was saving for a wedding, which means that I could dip into my wedding savings to pay for these different emergencies. For example, having to buy a new used car that was around $4,000. Very unexpected. To each their own. You have to decide what is a comfortable emergency fund for you, but realize it is not in a credit card and it may be more than $1,000. The expenses step is what's next. Go back and review the budget step if you did not hear me when I said you should know exactly where your money is going and how much you are spending each month from your expenses. Are you done reviewing it? Okay, for me, I like to break my expenses down into 3 different categories, which I call essential, loaded, and fully loaded. Essential is basically just a category that is basically the expenses that I need to live. For example, utilities, rent, and food. I follow that up with the loaded category, which is things like car insurance, gas, and cell phone bill. And that's followed up with the fully loaded category, which is things like internet, cable, date nights, and anything else that's lavish that I don't need to survive. This may be different for you, but this is what it is for me. The whole part of this step is knowing exactly what your expenses are and being able to decide what you can decrease that will help speed up your journey. For example, a lot of people might say the $6.99 Disney Plus streaming package is only slowing you up on your debt freedom journey. But $7 a month times 12 months in a year is only $80-ish. Getting $80-ish back in a year won't speed up your debt freedom journey any faster. But versus for me, when I sat down and looked at my budget and started looking for ways to decrease my expenses, we had a category in our budget for date night, and we realized that we overspent in this category easily. And we were easily able to cut back and save ourselves $500, or at least save myself $500 in date night budget, which went directly towards debt. This next step, I would say, is almost the most important step. Why? Because if you can't decrease your expenses any further, which I know a lot of people that are in that type of position, then you absolutely need to find a way to increase your income. Whether that be a second job, a side hustle, or selling stuff, you have to find something to increase your income. And the best thing about increasing your income, all that extra money can go directly towards debt. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I know how hard it is to spend extra time outside of your main job or whatever you may do, even taking care of your kids, to find extra income to put towards debt. When I was on my debt freedom journey, I worked in retail, I worked at hotels, I worked at the Park District. I worked in rideshare, Uber and Lyft, and I ended up even selling things. Most importantly, which you guys already know, was the condo that I was living in. If you can't get the second job, find a side hustle. One side hustle that I picked up that I did not mention before was I offered tax services to different people. I'm a CPA and I knew how to do taxes pretty well, and it was a pretty good pay for doing taxes for other people. But if you can't get the side hustle down, find something to sell. You can sell old clothes, old toys, sell anything. Do anything to try to increase your income. And this will only help you on your debt freedom journey. Doing these 3 things all together helped me knock years off my debt freedom journey, and it will do the same thing for you. Lastly, what method will you use to pay off debt? We all know the most popular ways, which is the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. But there are other methods as well that you can intermingle with these debt snowball and the debt avalanche that will help you speed up and accelerate your debt payoff journey. Lastly, what method will you choose? We all know the most popular method, which is the debt snowball, where you pay the smallest debt to the largest debt, and as you pay out the smallest debt, you take those payments and throw them to the largest payment. And just like a snowball rolling downhill, it picks up speed, picks up more snow until it hits its final goal. This method is all about celebrating the small wins. You get addicted to hitting a small achievement that gives you the fuel, the fire to move on to the next small win and the next small win until you're on your final debt, absolutely slaying it. The other method, which is pretty popular, is the debt avalanche method. In this method, you pay the highest interest debt first. The reason why this is such a popular method is because you pay the least amount in interest. And for all the math nerds out there, I know you guys don't want to pay any type of extra money towards interest. You want all the extra money to go to paying off debt. This is really good method for if your time horizon is longer than 2 years. Otherwise, the difference in the debt snowball and the debt avalanche is pretty minimal if your debt payoff date is less than 2 years. Another payment method that you might hear floating around the debt-free community is something called the snowflake payment. The snowflake payment is whenever you get a large or small chunk of money, you just throw it towards debt. And just like snowflakes that accumulate a ton of snow over time, that will help accelerate your debt payoff date because all these small payments gradually build up and make a huge dent in the debts that you're trying to pay off. The way I chose to pay off debt was a hybrid method, where I chose to actually pay off my biggest loan first that had the smallest amount of interest. My loans were accordingly. I had about $21K in car loans, I had $47,000 in student loans, and I had $84,000 in mortgage debt. The student loans were actually 13 different loans from $1,000 to $7,000, so that's the caveat here. The reason why I chose the car loan to pay off first is because I wanted to reduce the risk as much as possible. My biggest fear was possibly getting in a car accident. Since the car's value had rapidly depreciated over a few months, I would have to pay extra toward the car that I no longer could use or was destroyed. And also on top of that, if I lost a job, I did not want my car to be repoed because that would keep me from finding other ways to produce income. Paying off the car loan, I followed that with the student loans because I had a nice gradual stair-step approach with, a couple loans at $1,000, some at $2,000, some at $3,000, some at $5,000, and a couple at $7,000. And then lastly was the mortgage debt. The mortgage debt was the last one because it was simple. If worse came to worse, I could easily just sell the home. And the greatest thing about the home that I was living in, when I first bought it, I bought it already having almost $40,000 in equity within it. Here's the bonus if you guys made it this far. Probably not popular in most places in the debt-free community. I always recommend to reward and celebrate every small debt payoff achievement on your journey. When I paid off the car, me and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, went out to a nice meal. When we paid off the student loans, we went to a nice weekend getaway. Very modest, but it was still something to celebrate. And when we finally got debt free, we didn't do something huge, but we celebrated then. Celebrate those small wins with something, whether it be a nice meal out, a quick getaway, just anything to reward yourself. That will remind you of the tough achievement that you are trying to accomplish. And it will also another fuel to your fire to keep you motivated on the journey. If you made it this far in the video, you are definitely a part of the Freedom family. And I just want to say thank you guys for joining me because you obviously decided to live free if you watched this whole video. And lastly, in our house, as I always say, and for all my brothers and sisters in the Freedom family, financial freedom is for everyone.